Good evening. I'm Sal Bernardino with Ft.Lincoln Corporation, here with my colleague Will Collins, who has the lead on this project of the Banneker residential development. Will's going to go through a short presentation on the project, and then we'll both try to answer your questions as best we can.
I'm going to stand because I'm going to point to some of the presentation boards that we have, and I hope everybody can hear me. If you can't hear me, please say stop, and I'll repeat myself. But my name's Will Collins. I'm one of the managers of Ft.Lincoln Banneker Townhouse LLC, which is the development entity for this project. I appreciate your time tonight, and I thought I'd give you a brief overview on the project. And then after a brief overview, Sal and I will attempt to answer any and all questions that you have concerning this specific development. The project, which is located right on Ft.Lincoln Drive, is approximately 4.46 acres, 194,310 square feet. As I said, it's located on Ft.Lincoln Drive. The grade of the property is significant. From Ft.Lincoln Drive down to Banneker Drive, there's a grade differential from top to bottom of about 70 feet. The zoning on this project is R5D, which allows for multifamily and single-family attached and detached housing with a maximum FAR of 3.5 and a height of 90 feet. We're not proposing anything close to that allowable FAR or that height. What we're proposing are 4-story, fee-simple townhomes that contain a total of about 128,244 square feet over 42 units. While the site and its current by right zoning allows upwards of 680,000 square feet, which means you could, if we built to the by right use, you could put an 8-story structure on there and you could build approximately about 550 units. We don't think that's the right type of development for that property. What we're trying to do is develop something that seamlessly fits in with the surrounding community. And we believe that the proposed project with 4-story townhomes is much better suited to the surrounding uses of what are 2-, 3-, and 4-story structures. So what we're proposing, our height limit for our 42 units is 45 feet, as opposed to what's allowed under a by right use, which is 90 feet. With the proposed density of 42 units, our traffic report, which we've submitted to the Department of Transportation and what we've submitted to the Office of Planning, shows that the project will produce about 25 a.m. peak hour vehicle trips and 28 p.m. vehicle trips, peak hour. The property would be accessed off of 2 points of ingress-egress on Ft.Lincoln Drive. The proposed curb cuts on this property are both located on Ft.Lincoln Drive, here and here, 2 means of ingress and egress. These curb cuts have been submitted to the city's Department of Transportation and have been approved. So we're not accessing anything off of Banneker. Both the entrances will be off of Ft.Lincoln Drive. As I said, our traffic report has been reviewed by the Office of Planning and the District's Department of Transportation and has been accepted. So of the 42 townhomes, there'll be 22 townhomes that are 20-foot wide units, 20 feet by 42 feet in depth. They will be located along Ft.Lincoln Drive. So of those 22, I want to share with you what the elevations that you will see when you drive along Ft.Lincoln Drive. These are rear-loaded townhomes. As I said, they're 4-story. These 20-foot wide units will contain a total of 2,800 square feet. They're very large. They'll have a minimum of 3 bedrooms and 2.5 baths. The homes will have a loft feature that a homeowner could turn into a bedroom, creating a fourth bedroom, and with the potential of adding a full bath up there. So if the homeowner selects, you could have a 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath home. It's up to each individual homeowner. They may turn that into that loft, 4-story space, maybe an entertainment space, or it could be a bedroom. It's allowable either way. There are 20 homes that will be 24-foot wide townhomes. Now these will be 24 feet by 42 feet deep. They will be the largest home offered here in Fort Lincoln. They are 3,300 square feet. Once again, they could either be 3-bedroom or 4-bedroom homes. And I want to share with you what the elevations are on the front of those homes. So these are the elevations of the 24-foot wide. All of the homes that you see in this development are.
You don't have any problem with juxtaposition. Do you have a map of Fort Lincoln? You can show us.
I'm sorry, I'm new to the area, I don't know what that is.
You know what, I'm going to, if it's okay with you, I'm going to pass around an aerial that I have at Fort Lincoln, and which shows the site area, and pass it around and you can take a look at it. Would that be okay?
I'll show it. I think most of the folks know.
How many buildings are you gonna put over there? Actual buildings?
So there will be a total of 42 townhomes. So we'll take these around so we can give somebody scale.
Can we get a close-up first here?
It's really small. So there are 42 townhomes, and when we talk about townhomes, we build them, we pre-sell all these townhomes. We build them in sticks. So there's 1 stick, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sticks of townhomes with a total of 42 homes. 42 new fee simple homes that will be sold. 37 of the 42 homes will be sold as market rate homes. And they will be sold at prices ranging from $500,000 to $600,000. 5 of the homes will be subject to the district's new inclusionary zoning ordinance provisions, which means 3 of the homes will be sold as workforce housing at a price of about $225,000, and 2 of the homes will be sold to workforce housing eligible buyers at $290,000. The breakup is 3 of the houses have to be sold to families that constitute 50% of the average median income for the Washington metropolitan area, and 2 of the homes will be sold to families whose incomes cannot exceed 80% of the average median income. That's the workforce housing provision that's subject to all new developments within the district. But I wanted to make sure that 37 market rate, 5 workforce units. The exterior finishes for these homes will consist of the highest finishes that you'll see in Fort Lincoln. Both front and rear will only consist of brick, hardy plank, or stone. So you will not see a vinyl on these. We consider this, because of the site location, this is our highest quality home that we're going to be offering in Fort Lincoln. We believe, if you take a look at the streetscape along Fort Lincoln Drive, we really believe that, I think everyone is familiar with the Dakota Crossing project and what that appears on Fort Lincoln Drive. This is kind of taking the next step up, and from a finishing level, we believe that this will be our most attractive product and something that the community will be very proud of. It's really going to have a wonderful streetscape. There'll be a sidewalk along Ft.Lincoln Drive and then lead walks to the front door. This is a rear alley product, so you're going to see nothing but a great elevation and a great streetscape along Ft.Lincoln Drive as you drive down through the community. One of the key reasons that we're here to you tonight is based on the Civic Association's activity and involvement and being on top of what's going on here at Ft.Lincoln Drive. The Board of Zoning Adjustment asked us to meet with the Civic Association and discuss this project. We went to the Board of Zoning Adjustment to seek variance relief for theoretical lot approval. And what I mean by theoretical lot approval is we're building 42 fee simple townhomes on a couple of record lots on 4.5 acres. When you do that, you're required to receive subdivision approval for theoretical lots by the Board of Zoning Adjustment. The other reason is the internal street within this project will be a private street. And when you have private streets that do not front on a public street, you have to seek variance relief for theoretical lots. That is one of the reasons that we appeared before the BZA, is to get approval to subdivide it for theoretical lots. We sought relief for 11 of the homes will have front yards of 10 to 12 feet as opposed to the normal 15 feet. And the reason that we requested that variance is we have some topography behind those that we're building retaining walls, and we want to put the retaining walls in the homeowners association common space as opposed to the individual lots. So that's why we sought relief on the front yard requirements. And as I said, it was a minor relief sought because it was only 3 feet. We've had diligent discussions back and forth, a lot based on comments provided by the Civic Association with the Department of Transportation, the Office of Planning. The Office of Planning issued a positive staff report and fully supports the application with the modifications that were made. We really believe that this is going to be a wonderful housing community within Ft.Lincoln. I think the property values, as we've seen throughout our experience over the past few years, continue to rise in Ft.Lincoln, and that those homeowners who are invested here see a community that is improving every day with the housing stock, existing housing stock, as well as the new housing stock provided. We feel very good about this development. I really appreciate your time tonight, and we're hopefully you'll be supportive of what we're doing, and I'm here, as well as Sel is, to answer any questions that you might have. But I thank you for your time, and anything you can ask, we'll try to answer. No promises.
One thing you might be worth mentioning is the green space in the back.
Yes. The other thing is on the Banneker side of the job, we're not proposing any housing units in fronting Banneker. But what we are proposing is a bioretention area that will be a green space that will be what I'll call a very heavily landscaped green space that serves for bioretention. One more thing that the city is constantly pushing is for green methods. So our stormwater management will pipe all of the stormwater coming off both the roofs as well as the streets into underground detention. That water will be treated and flows into a bioretention facility to treat any stormwater runoff. So I want to make sure it's clear there's no runoff from the site that's going to shoot off into the sides to the adjoining neighbors. We collect it all on site within the curb and gutter system, pipe it through stormwater pipes, and then it will flow into a bioretention area that will be heavily landscaped and will be maintained by the homeowners association. And I think it'll be a really attractive feature as opposed.
It's not even pretty. It's going to be nice.
It won't attract mosquitoes.
It won't attract mosquitoes.
There won't be any standing water.
So-
All the water will be below ground.
Okay.
So that's just a brief overview of the projects. If you have any questions about the individual homes or the development, happy to answer anything you have. I'm going to go, yes ma'am.
No, thank you for coming and sharing.
happy to be here.
I have two questions. Number one, could you define for me what you mean by private street?
Private street as opposed to public street. Public street is those streets that are maintained by the District Department of Transportation. When you have private streets, like you would see the internal private streets in the Dakota Crossing project or the Villages project, everything, the Ft.Lincoln Drive and Joshua Barney Drive, they're public streets. The city is responsible for the long-term maintenance. Private street, the homeowners association is responsible for the long-term maintenance of that.
Yeah, the private street is part of the development property. It's privately owned.
So that is a private street.
Okay. The other
That's
issue,
what would be the advantage to Ft.Lincoln residents and residents of that particular housing cluster, there being a private street road, which you're telling me that, I'm saying, record, if they're not entitled to trash pickup from the city.
Oh, that being,
My question, they're not entitled to snow removal from the city, they're not entitled to any public services.
let me answer this. I'll answer this as the former director of public works for the District of Columbia. On a private street, the owner of that street is responsible for all the services that the city would normally provide. So snow plow, salting, maintenance is all the responsibility of the developer. On a public street, it's the city's responsibility.
So they will have to pay a homeowner's fee to.
That's the norm everywhere in this country with private streets.
So I'll give you an example. Our current homeowners association fee for the village is $110 a month. And that covers snow removal. It covers common area maintenance, landscaping, and it covers trash collection as well. And this
This will be
will,
my last comment.
Sure.
Question. Over the village at the Flca, over there a fair amount the last few weeks. One of the complaints from one of the homeowners over there is that trash is strewn all over the place. There's no public trash cans like we have like west of Ft.Lincoln because it's, I guess, a private street. So no one has sprung for the cost of putting a trash can on a corner. Each person goes around picking up trash as a consequence.
so one of the things that we do with every individual at closing is we buy the trash receptacles and give those to each individual homeowners at the villages. One trash receptacle for trash, the other one for recycling. So we're actually, as the developer, we're purchasing those. So I can tell you every single homeowner has their own receptacles. We enter into a contract with a private trash collection company and they come, I believe, twice a week. So that's part of your homeowners association fee. Yes, ma'am. Second question.
number one, I think you misunderstood this question, but I'll piggyback on that one later. The other is, and I apologize, I didn't come in to hear the introduction that they had given. So, is the homeowners association, which will provide services for the Banner site, the same homeowners association that covers the crossing?
No, it is not.
Okay.
So Dakota Crossing, which is 209 townhomes, they have their own homeowners association. The Villages project, they have their own homeowners association. Usually when you see these simple townhome developments, they want to contain and manage their own common space. The Banneker project will have its new homeowners association.
And again, this is standard practice all over the country because, as you might imagine, the homeowners would want to elect their own officers of that homeowners association from among the members of the community.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, can you explain, I live on Bannister.
Yes,
And I
ma'am.
live right there where I saw the sign for the hearing. So are the houses coming all the way back down to that?
No, ma'am, they are not. Let me give you an exhibit here so that you can see this. So, ma'am, this is Banneker right here. This is Banneker Drive.
Okay.
There will be no ingress egress at all from Banneker. Okay, there'll be no access points from Banneker. The area down here at Banneker will be a bioretention facility that will be a planted landscape area. Oh, okay, all right, so here's Ft.Lincoln Drive. This is Banneker down here. Hopefully that's the best reference point. There's no access points down here at Banneker.
Right, I understand that.
So-
So it's woods down there now, so is that going to be cleared away?
we'll keep some trees on this side, and we're gonna keep some trees on this side. We'll do a little bit of clearing here for the bioretention facility. So there will be some trees that will stay.
But it will all remain green. This will all remain green space.
So will you be able to see through where the homes are being built?
So
from
one of
Banneker?
the, so one of the things, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you won't, in the winter months, you will see those homes.
Now, I'm just trying to figure out how far down the clearing is going to.
Well, we'll selectively, I don't want to misrepresent anything here. We have a stormwater pipe that leads to a bioretention. When you do that, when you put a pipe down, you have to clear for that area. So you'll see a swath down that'll have a pipe underground that'll go to a bioretention area. The other areas, we're attempting to try to keep those trees. Now, I will tell you, we've done a tree inventory on that. There's some scraggly trees. So we'll meet with the DC Urban Forestry folks, and at the point in time that we start initiating any clearing on the site, if there are dead trees or anything like that, the urban forester will give us permission to remove those. So any trees that are cleared, we have to meet with the district first. And then also, just so there is a special tree permit that you have to receive from the district before you can do any clearing. So, but I don't want to represent that every tree is staying, because that would be a misrepresentation.
So if you're standing on Banneker, looking up, will you be able to see those, the new homes?
You know, if you look straight up in the air, yeah, because they're going to sit 45 feet high. So think of this. I'm here, let's say that this elevation, and I'm just pulling a number out, okay? Let's say that's at 100-foot elevation. If I went down to Banneker Drive, that sits at 30 feet. So there's a 70-foot differential. So where these homes rest is a long way from Banneker Drive, but at the same sense, when you build something that's going to sit up in the air 4 stories, if I'm walking along and I look up, I can see the back of those homes. I don't want to represent that you will never see the back of those homes. You will.
But will people be able to walk through those?
You know, it's very steep. So 70 feet, one of the troubles is, and we talked to the Office of Planning about this, is when you have topography dropping that fast, if you build a trail, your trail's generally supposed to be, meet ADA, American Disabilities Act, because you're not supposed to go greater than usually a 5 or 6% slope. Well, when you're dropping 70 feet here, you'll never be able to develop an ADA trail that works. Our idea is not to have pedestrian access from Banneker all the way up to Ft.Lincoln. It is to have pedestrian access through the top portion of the community, and then we will have access over to the park area. But it is not our intention to create a pedestrian connection between Banneker and Ft.Lincoln Drive.
This would be similar to South Dakota Avenue, when we were looking at the photograph of South Dakota House.
Yeah, where the pagodas are.
Very much so. Yes, sir.
I have a question about the retaining power retention pond. Are you doing an underground cistern, or are you actually creating a stormwater retention pond right there?
It's not going to be a stormwater pond, so we'll treat it at the top of the hill, and then it outflows to the bioretention. And what it does, it'll go at a rate of flow that will keep the plants within that bioretention facility. So when you think of like a stormwater detention pond that, water's just setting there, that's not the case with this. It doesn't
have water, it's not sheet flow of water.
No, nothing sheet flow. It'll all be piped. It all piped. So we pick up all the water from the roof, and roof drains, anything from the impervious surface, so the pavement. It's treated and then outfalls into the bioretention. But it is not, I want to repeat, not a dry or wet pond. It actually goes into a planted area that can handle the water, and it sustains the plant life in that bioretention
In
facility.
fact, the district government does not allow retention ponds any longer, so you cannot build one. What happens is that it's like a rain garden, and the plants actually also filter and polish the water as it goes in the ground.
I have one in front of my home now in the villages. I have a huge retaining pond, stormwater retention pond in front of the home there.
Where that's not a retention, that's a wetland. So what that is, that when the retail project was developed, there was 1 acre of wetlands on that parcel. The Corps of Engineers and the District Department of Environment requested us to mitigate. So anytime you like in the suburbs or, there aren't many wetlands in the city, but when you deal with wetlands, the Corps of Engineers say, okay, I want you to mitigate. And in this case, was it 3-to-1, Seth?
3-to-1.
3-to-1. So what happened was that we built a wetland there. So that is not a stormwater retention pond. If you actually went back down from the wetland area, you'd see a retention pond that was constructed as you walked along the property line. That's a retention pond, but what that area is a wetland.
It serves dual purposes, because it collects all the stormwater from when it rains from all developments, where they're raining down in phase 2 and 3, that water comes down.
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
So it's acting as both a retention pond.
That's right.
And that's what wetlands do.
So, just so, we spend a lot of time, just so you know though, one of the things that happens with that water, before we can discharge it across the street on Joshua Barney, we treat it in enormous filter systems, actual concrete structure with filter facilities. So I want to point this out to you. So what happens on this is we pipe the water, we collect all the water from the impervious surface, it's piped down the hill, treated in a structure system similar to what you would have at the villages. And then when I say treated, so it cleanses the water. Anything in the oil, anything comes in, canisters clean it. Once it's clean, then it will go into the bioretention facility to provide sufficient water flow to the plant material there. So that's what we have at the villages, and it'll be a similar component for what we will do here.
Yeah, I mean, think of it as a big aquarium filter.
I know what you're saying about this. My question is, we collect the water from roofs, we collect the water from curb and gutter. If I'm looking at that right, your retaining wall is covering the 2 houses on the backside, and there's a steep grade coming down at 70-foot drop. And you're telling me that all the water going to rain from the top of the hill is collecting from the houses, the street, that steep grade, once they even go through a filter, it's not going to create a pond?
So the street, so once it gets, if it's raining and it hits the retaining walls, I'm not going to tell you we're picking up that, but anything on the impervious surface or the roof we collect. We collect that water and put it in discharge. It is not going to create a wet facility at the bottom. And I'm going to tell you why. Is when it goes, like that structure right there, that's about $400,000, $350,000 to $400,000 structure. When it goes into that structure, it actually sits in that structure, the water is cleansed, and then the rate of discharge, it's a slow discharge from there. So that's why you don't get a huge pond at the bottom.
I'm just trying to see how I understand what you're saying. You're going to have a very damp area down there that's not going to be a pond, but just trees with very wet dirt.
Not dirt, it's actual plants.
Grass, so
It's grasses, it's other kind of plant material.
How do you treat that damp area from mosquitoes and things like that? You're putting a pond, how do you put a damp area right in between where people live and kids play? How do you stop that area you have right there from staying soaked? Whether it's damp, whether it's 1 inch, how do you?
From saying so, well, I would argue, it depends on the storm event. But staying soaked is not an issue. I can take you down right now to the storm facilities that we've built already, and whether you go to Dakota Crossing or the villages, we don't have a soak condition right now. We're actually bringing water into the site on a daily basis, just trying to keep plant material alive. So that's what we're dealing with right now. So the idea, you hit a summer month or a different time of the year, soaked is not your issue. A lot of the issue is how do you sustain this bioretention facility to get adequate water to it. So I don't want you to think that 12 months a year you're dealing with soak. I mean, so much of this is so weather dependent. But the rate of discharge from stormwater is controlled by these storm filters. And that's basically the green method of doing it. I mean, that's kind of...
It's industry standard, and I'll be doing that. I'm just saying for the area you put it, it's going in it's part of the common area. At the villages, that is completely isolated, and I don't have water there the entire year. So when that water sits there, because it's a common area, I'm just asking how do you treat it for mosquitoes and things like that?
There's no mosquitoes because there's no standing water. Mosquito larvae require standing stagnant water for several weeks at a time. It's not an issue. And it's been, the design, including all of those issues, have been reviewed and approved by the DC Department of the Environment.
I'll give you I'll just ask you, you live across the street from a wetland. I mean, the concept of wetland is to constantly try to keep that with water. That's not how this is designed. This is simply, there's enough plant material within that bioretention facility to soak this water up. I mean, quite frankly, as a developer, when you put these facilities in, your concern is not having a soaked area, it's making sure that you have enough of water to sustain the plant material. So a little bit, you know, your concern is soaked, and my concern is making sure that I have enough water going down there when I hit periods like I have in the past 2 weeks to try to keep it as a living, viable, facility. So a little bit different, we have a little different view in terms of thought process on that. So, because it's not cheap to replace that type of plant material if it's not sustained. It's expensive. Yes, ma'am.
I have not quite as many questions or concerns he has, but I want to revisit the two entries off of Ft.Lincoln Drive into the new townhouses. First of all, how far back are you going to go? How will this affect Timeview Court and even some parts of Summit Village in the back, even the senior citizen apartments, and there's a cat colony back there?
From the egresses, the only, the two egress, the two curb cuts, the only traffic it will, it's supposed to take on is the 42 homes that are being built. It doesn't have any impact on the surrounding homes.
Not even those homes, those older homes right there?
No.
Let me finish.
Okay.
That faces Bladensburg Road. I'm very familiar with all of that back there, and I'm trying to visualize how far back will these new units go.
I'm not understanding your question. What's the relationship between how far back they go and the traffic?
Yes.
What's the relationship? I'm not understanding the question.
I'm visualizing, I know where that area is, and I'm trying to visualize how far back from Ft.Lincoln Drive will these units sit.
So, this is Ft.Lincoln Drive, right here. The new curb cuts will be right here and right here. As far as the depth of where these will be from Ft.Lincoln Drive would be approximately somewhere in the range of 120 feet. It'll go from Ft.Lincoln Drive. There's a front yard. We'll have a lead walk of somewhere between 10 and 15 feet. Then a house of 42 feet. Then a driveway between 12 and 15 feet. The street itself is about 20 feet, and then you're repeated with a 10 to 15 foot front yard, 42 foot depth of the house. So my math may be a little off, but I'm thinking about 100 to 110 feet from the front of Ft.Lincoln Drive. I hope I'm answering your question correctly.
Not really.
I think she's asking how far from the street.
That's okay. I have asked the question, and I don't think that, that's okay. That's all right.
I'm not understanding your question, so I can't answer.
I don't know what any drive say.
How far back? Where would the houses
Oh,
start?
from Ft.Lincoln Drive back to where the houses start would be somewhere in the range of 15 to 20 feet.
Okay, excuse me, she's trying to see visually, I don't mean to speak to you now, but the existing housing right now, where's the existing housing right now?
So there
in
is
relation to the
existing housing here, and there's existing housing here. So the distance between the existing housing and what will be, there are N units, say this unit right here, and then this unit right here, They're the two closest to the surrounding developments. And the distance for those would be somewhere in the range of, I want to say, 50 feet on this side and somewhere closer to about 20 feet on that side.
So the
So which side is Summit?
Yeah, Summit Village is that side.
Summit is, I believe, Sally,
No, wait a minute, sorry, Summit Village is that
is
side.
Summit, so here is Summit Village. And as I said, if you, Summit Court, I apologize, I have dashed in here a little line. So that is going to be roughly about 40 to 50 feet from the closest
Are
unit.
you putting trees?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
As a division between?
Yes, ma'am. So if you see, we have a retaining wall along the side property line and two small retaining walls. So they'll range from about 4 feet each. What our intention is to plant evergreens here so that we can get the fullest amount of screening. And we'll plant evergreen trees to provide some visual buffer, not only for the new residents here, but from the existing
On both
homeowners
sides of the
on both sides, so that you'll have some screening, and that rather than just clear cutting all this, is we'll replant vegetation here. And we find that evergreens give us our best chance of getting a heavy, dense visual buffer. They grow very quickly, they get tall, quickly. And I think that's going to be the best screening method. But that it is our intent to plant along that side property line.
Who's going to maintain the evergreens?
The evergreens will be maintained by the homeowners association of the new Banneker Homeowners Association.
On both sides?
Let me ask you a real simple question. What will this development be called? To me, that should be clear.
Okay, I'll give you a simple answer. I don't know. And right now it's called Ft.Lincoln Banneker LLC, but there are smarter people than me in terms of marketing that will answer that, and I could get back to you. This is a project that would not start in terms of site development until April or May of next year at the earliest. And between now and then, we'll try to come up with a name. My hope would be it's something related to Dakota Crossing. It'll be, somebody smarter than me will come up with a name, but it'll have some relation to Dakota Crossing.
How long will the driveways be for these units?
So each of the units has an integral two-car garage. So 2 cars parking within the garage. A 24-foot unit and a 20-foot unit. So you have 2 cars inside your garage. It varies. We get some driveways as much as 16 to 18 feet, and we have some driveways as small as 8. So it's across the board. What we do have is, from a parking standpoint, I can tell you how many spaces are within the total community. When I say spaces, legal spaces within the community are, 1 second, and I can give that to you. Try to give that to you. 93 parking spaces for the community.
And then another question regarding maybe Department of Transportation stuff, but on Ft.Lincoln Drive, typically it seems like on the weekends, there's a lot of people that like to park, like right along there, and they go to the park or something like that. I'm sure at some point, when you're looking to bring in this many units, the homeowners association may say something about all those people just parking like this.
The issue with Ft.Lincoln Drive is a public street. So I want to make it clear, as a developer and even as a homeowners association, say the Banneker, we don't get to make the decision whether parking is allowed on Ft.Lincoln Drive. That's a decision made by the Department of Transportation. We don't control it.
But just, again, going back to my public works background, one of the reasons you do private streets and parking within the development is because you don't want to impose additional parking on a public street, and the city doesn't want you to put additional cars on the public street. So all the people who live within the development will be able to park inside the development.
Do you potentially predict more monitoring up there?
Oh,
I mean, they already, I don't know what happened, it's already some type of red light camera.
Just put that up,
Just
yeah.
put up, and have no
No, I was a director some time ago.
Yes, ma'am.
You said that within, I never even walk those spaces.
Within the development.
The side, the garage,
Yes, ma'am.
so there's got 19 parking spaces inside each car.
So there will be 84 units within the garage space, and then 9 guest parking spaces will be surface park within the community.
So these townhomes will be facing like the cemetery?
No, ma'am.
They will be facing the cemetery?
No, ma'am.
Where will they be facing?
So 22 of them will face Ft.Lincoln Drive. So this 22 face Ft.Lincoln Drive, and then these 20 will face these. So that none of them face the cemetery. They're all facing towards Ft.Lincoln Drive.
You know that, that?
Better rendering.
The,
Nice parking participation, more visual. To me, that's not really visual enough to me.
that was colored.
This four side building.
So let me.
This is what I'm saying that.
Yeah. So that's Ft.Lincoln Drive. Okay.
Yes.
The front of the homes, these 22 homes, front on Ft.Lincoln Drive, and the facades for those 22-foot homes, 22 20-foot wide homes, correct myself, will be this. And why don't I pass this back so that you can get a better visual of what the streetscape will look like? And hopefully, I'm answering.
This will be on Portland Drive between Summit Village and 33rd Street.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
When would they start turning the trees down over here?
Wouldn't be till next April or May.
So when they start developing the homes, they won't turn the trees down until they actually start building.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, right before.
Yes, ma'am. We won't touch a tree until we're ready to start full development.
So when I was walking around Summit Village and Hillside, which is immediately adjacent to this development, there were a lot of concerns about drainage because they have problems with drainage. You mentioned that your drainage system accommodates for your housing, roofs, and such, but can it accommodate also for the possibility of drains coming, inadequate drainage of Hillside and Summit Village going into this new
So
development?
the difficulty is some of these have different drainage deposits. I haven't studied the adjoining ones, so I can't answer that question right now. I just don't know.
And then filters, are filters going to be something that has to be replaced and is the homeowner's responsibility?
They're not replaced. So what filters, we don't usually replace them other than maybe every 3 years. But what happens is twice a year you go in and you clean the filters.
Oh, and that's the homeowners of that development's responsibility to maintain?
That's correct.
And what would be the worst case scenario if they neglected that?
The city would come in and assess them for cleaning it because you
Okay.
would have
So there is
issue.
some sort of accountability measures for?
Absolutely.
It would be a violation of the law.
Yeah,
So
okay.
there are covenants that the city makes us put on the property as far as stormwater management. And that's what, one of them is that you'll maintain your stormwater structures, so.
And then the other question I had, if I could, just because I live in Summit Village and the building right adjacent, and our buildings are so poorly made that there's cracks and leaning and it can't handle much disruption of the earth as the earthquake showed. And so we're worried about construction digging into the earth.
It's a good point. So you brought that up before.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really good point and I want to deal with that. So what's happening, if you walk the site right now and you were at Ft.Lincoln Drive and then you looked at where our building pads are, the site, if I was walking along the sidewalk and then I went from the sidewalk down, you would see a drop of about 5 to 6 feet. So if I can explain this in a 3D method, what's going to happen is why we're putting in retaining walls is we're not cutting anything, okay? We're adding dirt. So that's why we're putting retaining walls in, because it's a fill condition, it is not a cut. I think the thing that's important is, because I'm really sensitive to this issue in terms of structural foundations. One is we have to have a certified pad that's inspected by a geotechnical engineer before we can put a footing in the ground.
Outside of your own organization.
Well, yeah, it's a third party.
Yeah, that's what
It's
not-
a, it's a
no
third
conflict.
party. So I have to have a geotech. Now, I'm gonna tell you, the 25, 30 years ago, some of this stuff just didn't happen. There weren't rules in place in terms of geotech.
Yeah, it just wasn't required.
It just wasn't required. We have, when we do this development, so like when we're building Dakota Crossing or we build the villages, just to share with you, every day for 8 hours a day while we're doing any kind of earth work, we have a full-time geotechnical consultant on site.
And that information is transparent and accessible to the public?
Well, I file reports, they have to file a report to me every 2 weeks. If I even notice anything going on, you know, if they see any noticing in terms of we're having any lateral effect on any other, I mean, we stop development. I mean, it's just, it's not even an issue. We can't be subject to that kind of liability. But I have a we hire geotechnical consultants to be on that site. So we have a geotech. Before we put a footing in the ground, so before we go and even dig for a footing, we get another geotechnical engineer to come in and check the pad again.
And it's transparent to the public?
Well, transparent, normally we don't transparent in terms of, I don't issue geotechnical reports to the general public. I've never had any general public ask me. Now, if we ever have an issue with that, the city comes out and says, hey, we're concerned about what you're doing here, you know, that would certainly be, anything that we issue to the city is certainly transparent. But I guess what I'm trying to say to you, in this condition of what we have at this site, we are not cutting. And if we had a cut condition here, I'd be concerned if, as a neighboring property owner. This is a total field situation. Everything up at that hill, just to share with you, we're bringing in somewhere between 36 and 38,000 cubic yards of material, structural good material. Then, so as you see development, we'll do clearing, we'll start filling will pause, you have to build your retaining walls. Once you build the retaining walls, you fill again, put another wall in, you fill again. So it is not a situation where we're coming onto the side of that property and cutting any situation.
So it's not disturbing the earth?
Excuse me, may I say something, please?
Yes, sir.
I mean, because this time, I'm trying to understand what you're saying, I can't. We're talking about down here, right, between 2800 block
Yes, sir.
and between Summit Village, all that.
Yes, sir.
Space across from the park.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so my question is, what you're talking about the filling is, because we walk there, it drops.
That's right.
Completely.
Yes, sir.
So what you're saying is that you're gonna bring in materials, the dirt, or whatever, to fill up, to bring that depth of what, 10, 15 feet?
It's upwards of 10 to 15 feet at points, yes.
Whatever you're gonna bring that to speed.
Not total, it'll be, just so you know, it'll be about 2.5 feet below, where it'll be level, it'll be about 2 to 2.5 feet below where the sidewalk is.
Okay.
Okay?
And so that's facing the park.
Yes, sir.
That's facing, I'm talking about 9, I'm talking about this one.
Yes, sir.
Great.
Mhm.
And how many units is it gonna be there?
Total of 42.
Beginning next April or May sometime?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
What is the EDA time?
Finish.
Finish, okay, so we would deliver the first units. I don't think they would deliver until first quarter of 2015, and I don't think the project would be done until the end of 2015. Yes, ma'am.
Just a quick question about the drainage. So I live on the 2800 block, which sort of abuts the property that you're building. We already have flooding and drainage issues there. So how do you plan to deal with that on that piece of property? Do you plan to tap into the existing sewer line that is by the city, or what do you plan to do about the drainage there?
Let's talk about your current condition, because you guys know the property. You know from the top Ft.Lincoln Drive down. Right now, there is no stormwater system for that property. You got 4.5 acres of sheet flow. Going when it rains, it's hitting the top of the slope and it's going down. There are no stormwater structures on that property right now. So what we will do is when we build and develop the site, we will put storm collection through curb and gutter, through storm drains to pick up the water that falls from the sky that ends up in